All right, today we are talking about meters. How do you use a meter? What's the cheapest meter to buy? What's the recommended meter in the field right now? What are people saying? We have the Tik Tok meter. We also have the technician recommended meter of 2025. So stick around and find out what is the top recommended meter by field service technicians right now. Hey, everybody. So we're going to put these meters to the test. From cheap models to reliable model, we're going to cover how to use the meter, how to check your leads, and how to maintain these meters. We're going to go over from cheap models to the recommended model, and of course, the Tik Tok meter and the Top Tech recommended tool. We're going to get into it and see why this is the #1 recommended multimeter for appliance repair. Let's dive in. So before we get too far into it, let's talk about the settings on a multimeter and the symbols in case you're not sure what they all mean, because it can be a little bit confusing depending on how advanced your meter is. There could be several things all over your meter and you might not know what they mean. So let's start off with AC voltage. AC voltage is going to be the most common setting that you use, and this is when you're checking power. Now, that doesn't mean that it works on everything. You have to know the difference between AC and DC. There is AC, which is the most common. That is the power that's on your outlet, and most of your 120 volt circuits are running AC. That's alternating current. And the symbol you can see will have a squiggly line. That is how you know you're looking at alternating current. You'll see either a V or VAC. Those are pretty typical. This is what it looks like on most of your meters. And this is just to show some examples of the difference. Next, we have DC voltage. And of course, just like AC, these symbols are typically VDC for voltage direct current. So some meters will have VDC, some will have just DC, and the symbol is a straight line with dotted lines underneath. That's letting you know that is a direct patch. Everything that's going to be low voltage around 12 to 27 volts, that's typically DC voltage. For sensing circuits, variable speed motors like fan motors and things like that, that's all low voltage. So you want to make sure that you're using the correct setting. Next, you have ohms, resistance, continuity. Those are all going to be within the same range of most meters. And some meters, like the field piece, they're all joined in one section, and then you can use the select button to switch between the different value. When you're checking for ohms and the resistance of a load, you're typically checking to make sure that that load is within its spec. I'm not a big fan of checking continuity or resistance because those things can kind of lie. You can sometimes check continuity of a thermal fuse or a fuse in general, and it could show that it's good, but as soon as you put a load through it, it can actually fail. So that can send techs down rabbit holes. Sometimes that's your only way of checking a component, and that's fine. But I'm always going to push and recommend to check things under load with live power, because electricity doesn't lie. Voltage, amperage, wattage, those don't lie. But continuity, resistance, that could change once you apply power to that circuit. So that is something to keep in mind. When you're checking ohms, the symbol's typically like a horseshoe symbol, and then of course you will have different settings. That could vary, and depending on your type of meter, you might need to change the selection. That could be anywhere from ohms, mega ohms, kilo ohms, and so forth. Of course, that's all going to be dependent on the type of meter you have. Another important setting that your multimeter needs to have is, of course, capacitance and microfarads. Those are really important to make sure that you can check capacitors. You see those on drive motors, and it's important to be able to test those capacitors. Here's a pretty standard capacitor symbol that most multimeters use. Of course, keep in mind that others might label as MFD, or they'll have a microfarads or capacitance symbol, the microfarad symbol. And it's the unit of capacitance used to measure how much electric charge a capacitor can store. The F in the symbol stands for farad, which is the base unit of capacitance. The other symbol is kind of like a weird looking U. That is a Greek letter, and it stands for micro, or 1 millionth. So if you open up any microwave or air conditioner, you'll find a capacitor, and it'll most likely have a label like this. And that means that this capacitor has a 35 microfarad capacity and is rated to handle up to 370 volts. So what does that mean in practice? The larger the microfarad value, the more charge the capacitor can store. In motors, the higher microfarads mean more torque when started. In filters like power supply or even audio, it affects the frequency response. In some washing machines, if you were to look inside, you can even find a capacitor style filter that's there to clean up any type of line noise and help with frequency issues. Now keep in mind the ability of checking capacitors, that is not going to be available in all meters. So that's something to check on your multimeter prior to maybe purchasing that meter and seeing if that is something that you are going to need to be able to check. And just to show here on some of the meters, and I just want to show how not every meter will actually check microfarad. So out of all these meters here, only 1, 2, 3, and 4 actually check microfarad. None of the other ones can check capacitors. So that's something to keep in mind when you're purchasing a meter. What is going to be some of the settings that you are going to need? And is the meter you're considering going to provide you with those checks? Another one to have is a diode tester. Now, diodes are something that we come across here and there. There's also another good way of checking LEDs for refrigerators and anything that uses an LED. You could use a diode tester to see if that LED will come on and light. Now, frequency is something that some meters have. It might not be something that you need to check every time. It's also another good setting to have, and that is to check the frequency of the circuit. Typically, you're not going to have a frequency issues. In case your meter has this option, this is what that's going to look like. Another good thing that most multimeters do, not all, and that's checking temperatures. Most multimeters like the fill piece and flukes, they give the option to check temperatures using a K-type thermocouple or an adapter to use a K-type. Fill pieces, they'll have that attachment right there on the face. Just to show you here what that looks like, you can connect a K-type thermocouple directly to that meter. Some other ones, and here's an example, you'll need to use an adapter to use it, but all will work the same. So temperature is a pretty important setting to have. Of course, you should know what the symbols look like. And lastly will be the low Z setting. This is something we're seeing on newer, more modern meters. Not anything you're going to see on older meters, because this is a new setting that are coming out. And this is to help drain off any potential ghost voltage, so you're not getting a false reading with voltage. And I'll let this video kind of explain. Let's take a look.
Low Z stands for low impedance. When you switch your multimeter to a low Z voltage setting, it lowers the input impedance of the meter, usually down to something like 2K to 3K, instead of the typical 10 megohm. This helps the meter drain off any ghost voltage or stray voltage that may be present from induction or capacitive coupling. So it's a really good way to verify you actually have a true power source.
So as you can see, low Z is going to be for those odd situations where you're getting a reading when it's not really true. For some examples, when you're turning power off to something, but you're still registering around 60 to 70 and low voltage like that, you're wondering, well, why do I still have voltage here? That doesn't mean it's true voltage. It's most likely that ghost voltage. And your only real way of checking that and actually draining that ghost voltage out is using a low Z setting on your meter. Not all meters have that low Z setting, and this is something new that's being introduced, and hopefully we'll see more and more of these manufacturers add these low Z settings, because right now there isn't many out there that actually have that low Z set. All right, so let's take a look at this Tik Tok meter. This is ranging anywhere between $12 to $20 depending on what sales they got going on. I paid 14 bucks for it. It's what's all over TikTok right now, and for the price, let's see how it compares to the recommended multimeter that service technicians are recommending right now. All right, let's cut into it. This is the Tessman TM510 automatic multimeter. It's called a smart digital multimeter. Auto ranging, non-contact volt, flashlight, data hold, LCD backlit, and 4,000 counts. Okay. You really can. I mean, 14 bucks. Oh, wow. So it comes in a nice little case, a little carrying case. I wasn't expecting that. Really small and lightweight. Let's take a look inside. All right, so we have some, AAAs. So add that to the potential battery source for multimeters. This one came with 2 AAAs. Duracell, at least not some knockoff brand. All right, then it also comes wrapped in another baggie. Let's rip this up too. All right. Let's take a look. Okay. Got a flashlight on it. And I mean, this thing has no weight to it. I mean, there's There's gotta be nothing inside it. Where does the batteries even go on this thing? I don't even see a spot for the batteries to go. Oh, jeez. It's like a little rubber case that goes around it. Okay. And it's even smaller, and wow. Good quality. Great quality stuff there. Again, 14 bucks. You know, don't expect fluke or field piece quality. The Amazon $20 meters are probably better than this. These leads, again, like the meter, feel very cheap and flimsy and probably won't last. I'm curious to know if they're even any good. We'll find out. So let's put AAA's. I mean, this thing weighs nothing. I mean, if I was to hiss somebody with this, it probably just, you probably wouldn't even feel it. This is nothing. I think the instruction manual weighs more than the meter itself. Let's put our batteries in it. All right. Get this cover off. It's got a little Phillips screw. Cover comes off. Just, oh my God. Everything about this meter is stressing me out. If anyone's using this in field service, props to you, man. I could be sitting here talking all this, but watch this meter be just as good as $200 field piece or, you know, fluke or whatever. Batteries in. Oh, that just turned right on. Cool. Oh, gotta put it back in its case though. You don't want it to fall on the ground and get damaged. Gotta put it in its case. All right, just put these leads on. So black on common and your red is always on line. Typically they're color coded. All right, it's on auto ranging. If I touch my leads together, is it gonna read continuity? Eventually it did, and then it stopped, and now it's reading continuity on its own. Touch it again. If I hold still, God, these are all, yeah, 0.010. Now it's all zeros across the board, so that works. That works. Let's check the resistance of a thermistor. See if it'll read. Again, I'm not touching anything. This is all automatic. It's supposed to do everything automatically. So here's a thermistor. We're just going to put our leads in and see what she reads. So 2.6 kilo ohms. Oh, it's got a little light. So kilo ohms, of course. K ohms. 1,000 ohms. Not 1,000, but yeah, that's K is 1,000. Whatever. So I got the field piece SC260 with a bad battery. Let's see what she reads. 2.5 kilo ohms. Low battery. I mean, it's within range. Technically, it works. Now, of course, there's no amp clamp, so you're not checking amperage with this thing. It looks like it's AC, DC, resistance, continuity, and non-contact. You know, the non-contact voltage reading. That's about it. That's all you get. No capacitors, no diodes, no amperage, nothing like that. I mean, if this was like a backup meter, maybe okay. Let's take some voltage readings with it. See how she does. We'll compare it. But I mean, so far she's working, so it works. And what I like about the field piece too, in case you forget it on, it beeps at you. After a while of just sitting there and idle, the field piece will sit there beeping at you, letting you know, hey, you left me turned on. And it will automatically shut itself off. So it will beep for a little while, then you'll get a long beep, and that's how you know the field piece shut off. So that's another good feature about the field piece that I enjoy. I know I'm sounding like a field piece guy. They're just good meters, man. They're just good meters. Whatever. Apparently so is this $12 Tik Tok meter. That probably won't last you as long. You know, it'll probably fail. And I'll do a follow-up. I'm going to use this for a little while, and I'll do a follow-up to see if it failed. Let me turn the light on. Oh, it's got a little flashlight on it. Look, it's got a little flashlight, so that's pretty cool. Bigger field pieces, and I don't know if Fluke has a flashlight, if on any of theirs. I know some other brands have flashlights on their meters, so here it is. Pretty cool little meter. I mean, for what it is, for 12 bucks, you know, if you can get it for 12 bucks, 14 bucks, that's not bad. You know, if it works, if it lasts, we'll find out. There's the light. There you go. One press, you get some backlight, and you can see it's just in there switching between the modes. And like I said, only has really 4 modes: AC voltage, DC voltage, resistance, and continuity. That's about it. So you're not getting anything fancy out of it, but for a quick, you know, backup meter in case your main meter dies, and just have something like this in the van that you can just make a quick check, yeah, it'll work. You know, we'll see how she does, and I'll do a follow-up after, you know, I use this for a little while, see if it breaks. But let's check some voltages with it. All right, so I am not pressing. I mean, this is an automatic meter, so I'm not pressing anything. I'm not changing any settings. I'm just gonna put my leads in, and it's auto ranging, and it went straight to 123 volts, and I didn't change anything. I think the only thing you have to change is the non-contact. All right, and let's test that. Just come up to the wire. That's the only thing you have to change is the non-contact. If you just press and hold the non-contact voltage check, you can just put it up against anything. Lets you know if it's live or not. That's pretty cool. All right, so now for what you guys have been waiting for. What's the recommended meter? What are all the technicians saying? So I looked across the board. I went into the Appliance Facebook groups and just searched what's the recommended meter. And there were several green techs, newer techs coming in asking what meter should they buy. And every single person I saw were either recommending Fluke, Field Piece, but the #1 recommended multimeter, this bad boy right here. Let's get into it. What am I doing? There it is. It's actually a lot bigger than I was expecting it to be. I'm not gonna lie, I was expecting it to be much smaller. That's a pretty good size meter. That's pretty big. That's about the size of like my SC440, which is a pretty big meter. Let me grab it to show the example. So here's my SC440. I mean, it's just as big. Pretty big meter. So compared to our Tik Tok meter, our $12, $14 Tik Tok meter, this is gonna run you about $130. The SC440, that's going to run you around $200 and something. Of course, I am quoting Amazon prices, all right? We all know where you're going to go buy your stuff from. Duh. But yeah, it's a pretty big meter. Let's open her up and check it out. This is definitely not how you use a knife. Think Amazon will let me return it. This is the Klein Tools CL800. Yeah. About the same weight as the SC440. About the same weight. I like that the dial is right here by your finger so you can quickly switch. I'm all about simplicity, so being able to change it with, you know, one finger, the one side of your hand, or without having to hold it with both hands. And, you know, especially when you're right-handed. As a right-handed person, that's really easy. If you're left-handed, you know, maybe your middle finger or your index finger, depending on how big your hand is, feels a little, I mean, the claw section feels a little cheapy. You know, Field Piece. Can you hear that? Just feels hollow, plasticky. Just in the Field Piece, just sounds, you know, just I'm ready to do some work. And this one's just like I'll work, I guess. Just, you know. Also, there's no magnet. There's no magnet. They do sell a magnet attachment, and I'll show it here. So, you know, that can drive the cost up a little bit, because to me, a meter without a magnet already built onto it is kind of a why? Why would you even sell that meter? Every meter should have some type of magnet. And I'm not a fan of the flappy magnet that some of the Field Pieces have. Like that, I'm not a fan of that because they tend to be a little bit weaker. I like the magnet behind the back of the 260. Or it's just a stationary magnet, you know, to the back of it. But yeah, this one you have to get the attachment and put it on there. But reason why this is the #1 recommended, it's because it's the cheapest meter that you can get that has a low Z setting. Low Z. This has a low Z setting. None of my Field Pieces do. None of the Flukes I've seen have them. I'm pretty sure once you start bumping up the price, you probably can find one. But for $130 with a low Z setting, that's pretty awesome coming from Klein. And I'm a big Klein Tools guy. I like their screwdrivers and some of their mod boxes. I mean, they make good products. I'm not going to lie. They make good products. And I'm sure this meter would be just fine. We're going to test it out. We're going to compare it. We're going to compare this one to the $14 Tik Tok. I wonder, you know, what that's going to look like. But yeah, this one has more settings, of course. This is going to get you capacitor. It has frequency diodes and things like that. You can make those checks with this. I also like that they put a meter lead holder right here on the side, like the higher end Field Pieces do. I'm a big fan of that. Depending on the position you're at, you kind of need to be able to see the screen. So sometimes you're having your leads and you're trying to look at your meter. That's a big plus, because then I can have this in my hand, put my lead in there and check it and see the screen at the same time. So I'm a big fan of that with Klein putting that there. That's pretty cool. It's got a non-contact voltage checker as well. You can check temperatures, you know, Fahrenheit, Celsius. Now this one, you have to use the adapter, so don't go losing the adapter. Where fill piece, you know, you put it directly, the K-type, you can put directly on the meter itself. You don't have to worry about an adapter. So there's positive and negatives to anything. It's all about what you like. Now, I'm not going to get low Z with this. I will get it with the Klein. The low Z setting, yeah, that's a huge selling point. Having a low Z setting on this meter, that's pretty good. Like I said, running about $130 on Amazon right now. Pretty good meter. So let's check it out. Let's see what else comes with it. I'm already seeing a light, so this one might even also have a flashlight. I'll have to look at the manual and see what it does. But here is the whole thing right in front of my face about what is on there and blah 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 blah. All right, so it comes with a nice little bag as well, much nicer than our Tik Tok meter. Bigger, better bag. Really curious to know what those leads look like. I thought it was double A's and 9-volt, but no, apparently it's triple A's. So triple A's. And here's that K-type adapter. On the fill piece, I don't need that, but on the Klein, I'm gonna have to install this adapter and then to be able to attach my K-type thermocouple. To me, that's annoying. To me, I don't want to have to carry another adapter. And also, if I lose this adapter, then I can't check temps. Then I have to go and see if I can find just this adapter where I don't have to buy the meter itself. And yeah, they sell these adapters on Amazon. Here's some. Blah, 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 blah. Yes, then, you know, you do have these adapters. I just hate that. I just hate having to carry an adapter and worry about an adapter. I've always used the field pieces and you just press a little switch and switch it to thermocouple. And then you can just stick your thermocouple directly onto the meter. You don't have to use an adapter sticking out of the thing, you know, but to each their own. To each their own. And they do include the thermocouple. So it looks like you're going to get a thermocouple, instructions, the adapter, and the meter. Of course, your leads and AAA batteries. That's it. You know, with the fill pieces, you get alligator clips, you get the thermocouple, you know, you get a nice bag. And on the 440s, you know, once you open the claw, the light comes on. So it's probably going to be the same thing with the Klein. I like the shape, and I do like being able to get to this dial, and it's smooth enough to use one hand. I do like that it's right there. Where on the fill piece, yeah, I just have to use my thumb. Yeah, I use my thumb for the fill piece, which is still one-handed, but you got to use your thumb. I do like that, you know, it's right there. That's pretty cool. And then, of course, you got your hand on the trigger, so it fits really nice in your hand. It really does. It fits really nice in your hand. I really like that. All these meters are true RMS meters. If you're going to buy a meter, make sure it's a true RMS. I don't think that Tik Tok meter is a true RMS. We got to go back and look at it, but I have no idea. I'd be surprised. True RMS meters, that's the way to go. They'll even say it. If you can see it, if you can zoom in on that or not, I don't know. True RMS, you can't miss it. And look, even says tough meter, gonna last. All right, so let's put these batteries in. I do appreciate that they all include batteries. I think fill piece does too. All the fill pieces, they're 9-volt batteries. They're not Duracell. Who gives a damn? Oh man, she's on. All right, she's on. Let's check out these leads. I can tell you already that I prefer my fill piece leads. These feel more like the Amazon cheap leads. I don't know. I've gotten used to the fill piece leads and they just feel good. If you've used the fill piece leads, fluke leads, you know, those leads feel pretty good. I mean, these are okay, but I mean, I would compare them to like the Amazon leads. I'm also not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of having to put it on the bottom. I prefer on the front. Hopefully these don't pull out, but I can see how, yeah, they already loosened it up a little bit. It just seems so big, but it's pretty cool. Yeah, so it's only doing one single row. You know, I'm used to my fill piece. God, I'm gonna keep comparing this to my fill piece, but you can't. You know, it's a $130 meter, $200 meter. That's a huge difference. So I'm gonna stop trying to compare it. I'll compare this to the $160 260, the SC 260 meter. Let me pull that up to it. So these are more comparable in pricing, but the fill piece is a lot smaller. It doesn't have a light. Really liking this Klein. The low Z, man. The low Z is what's getting me. For that price point, to have something that has low Z, that's pretty cool. Okay, so it's got a flashlight. Yeah, kind of like our Tik Tok meter. It does have a little flashlight there. Now I found that once I press and hold the hold button, it's got a little symbol for the light. It turns my backlight on and my flashlight. I don't want them both on at the same time, and it doesn't turn the light on once you open the claws. You know, like the bigger field piece that I have, once you open the claw, the light comes on so you can see where you're going. I wish that would have done that. I wish they would have included that. But you know, for 130 bucks, God, if they added that feature, it might have gone up $20 just so you can turn the light on when you open the claw. Let's put it on continuity just to see if the leads work okay. Yeah, they're reading 0.0. Move them around. Am I getting anything when I'm moving around? 0 ohms. I'm not getting anything. So they're just a little touchy. That's all. But they work. All right, and this is what you get. You get the bag, thermocouple, the thermocouple adapter, manual, meter itself, and of course your leads. Now I did look in the manual, and it says to press and hold this for more than 1 second. Both lights will turn on, as you can see. That's stated in the manual, so there's no way to turning on just one over the other, and it says it will turn off after 3 minutes. I wish there was a way to turn on or off one over the other, but that's just how they set it up. That's just a preference of mine. Once you start wanting more out of the meter, that's when prices go up. So more of those preferences that you like are added to this meter, it's going to start going up in price. For 130 bucks, this is actually pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, this is pretty good. Let's go check voltage just to see how she reads. To the same place that we tested the Tik Tok meter. So I went to pull my leads just to kind of straighten them out, and like I said, I hate this design. It's already pulled the lead straight out. Gotta get used to it. I'm not used to having them down here. I know Fluke is like that, and these Kleins are, but I'm used to the field piece ones. Hate me, don't hate me. Oh well. Checking voltage. Yeah, see, I wasn't getting any readings because these were kind of backed out, so I just had to kind of push them in a little bit more, and I started getting a reading. So again, when you go to straighten out your leads, you kind of pull them like this. Yeah, you're gonna push them back in, straighten them out. There it goes. So yeah, that's kind of annoying, but you know, that's the least of my problems. But yeah, reading fine, just like our Tik Tok meter. She's reading correctly. There you go, $130 meter, it is working. Let's check our thermistor like we did our Tik Tok meter, and let's go take a look. All right, so let's turn this light on. We got our thermistor. Let's switch to resistance. I'm not gonna change anything. I'm just curious to know if it's gonna read. All right, let's see. No, does not like it will do that. So you're gonna have to hit select. There you go. Now it's reading. Yeah, you gotta hit select to change, you know, the range. See, just ohms and continuity, it's not going to do anything. But if I switch to auto resistance, this is auto resistance, then it's reading 2.3 k ohms. And of course, that's the thermistor that we've been testing. Everything works. Does what it says it's supposed to do, so I'm glad. So I'm okay with that. But like I said, just some of the things that I don't like, those are just, you know, the negatives of the meter. But those things shouldn't keep you from purchasing this meter. It's just more of a personal preference is all. So it's up to you. If you're used to the field piece meters, you might not like some of the things that this meter, how this meter is laid out. But hey, we do get that low Z though. That's pretty impressive. All right, so all in all, I do like this meter. It's nice. It's got nice weight to it. It's, you know, I like that it's got these side grips. It makes it easier to hold on to it. Positioning of your hand on the trigger and, you know, and for your selection wheel. And it's really hard to find good meters for this price range. Usually when you're finding something like this, you're 200 and up, you know, compared to what Fieldpiece and Fluke and, you know, these big brands offer. Pretty cool that Klein offers all these settings, including low Z, which the top brands are missing. You know, I get it. I get why you guys are recommending this meter for the price point. If you're just starting out and you want something that's going to give you a wide range of selection for testing and everything like that, you have the Klein CL800 for $130. It's not bad. It's not a bad start. There's things I don't like about it, of course, just the position of the leads themselves, the adapter for the K-type thermocouple. Those are more of preferences. It has nothing to do with the functionality of the product. It's just my preference. So, I mean, those are just, you know, me being nitpicky and wanting everything to be perfect. So, but yes, pretty cool meter. Pretty cool, pretty good. All right, so now let's compare the budget-friendly models with the pro-grade models. We're gonna check AC voltage and DC voltage and see how they compare. Okay, before we can check DC voltage, we need to talk about needle leads. Needle leads are adapters to your existing leads that come down to a needle point that will help you get into tighter spots. When testing DC voltage, most times you're gonna be at a control board with very tiny pin connectors. At that point, you will need some needle style leads that will get into those tight spots because your standard probes are just not going to be able to get in there and make contact and give you a proper voltage reading. So let's get into the needle leads. Believe it or not, you can just get universal needle probes that attach to your existing leads, and those are pretty cheap. You can get them anywhere from $5 all the way up to $15 for larger packs. So we got our Harbor Freight Walmart meter here, and of course these are just the leads that it came with. No needle style leads that came with this unit, but you can use the universal ones, and that's what I'm talking about right here with these. You can get these, like I said, on Amazon, online, anywhere from $5 to $15. They work well, and the good thing about these is that they're pretty much universal and can fit just about on any type of lead. All right, so I took them off the package, and they pretty much just pop in just like your standard banana style plugs. As you can see, your leads will just kind of slide in there, and they're just like extensions. So these are actually pretty good to use. And with these, all you will need to do is just slide them into your existing leads. They actually look like they're part of it. Pretty much it. You're just extending the leads and coming down to the point. Let's show you here some testing on how to use these and what that looks like. The first one we're going to use is the auto ranging testman from Tik Tok and see if it'll read. Now, of course, when it comes to DC loads, they're usually pretty small little pin connectors. It's going to require you to use those needle leads. So let's apply our needle leads to the testman and give it a go. All right, let's put those $7 needle lead extensions on. All right, we got them on. Let's give that a shot. Now I do want to show, this is all on day one of use on this meter, is that the leads are already broke. We were checking voltage, and then all of a sudden we stopped getting readings, checked the leads, and found out that they broke. The banana clip inside the negative probe just started falling apart. There's metal pieces of the banana clip just coming apart. It didn't even last 3 checks and they fell apart. There you go. I mean, that's a pretty good indication of the quality of how long do you think this meter is going to last you. And I don't know if you can see it in there, but bits of the banana plug actually broke off inside the meter. I'm going to try to get some tweezers to get them out. And these are the tweezers I use for soldering, so of course they're covered in it. Yeah, there it is. There's the piece that broke off inside the meter. All right, let's see if it still works. Yeah, put different leads on and it works. All right, so I got new leads onto the Tik Tok meter and I put needle probes on. Let's check out this fan motor here. All right, we're reading right around 13 volts DC. So the meter is still working okay. And with those needle leads, we're good. All right, for comparisons, we're gonna use this Fluke auto ranging as well. This is just like the Tik Tok. You don't have to do any settings. It'll do it on its own. Let's see what we get here. Now, that's what you're going to get if your leads are reversed. So I actually have my positive on my negative on the positive. So I'm going to get a negative 13.75 DC voltage. But in reality, it's just because my leads are reversed. So if I reverse my leads, there we go. Now we have a positive. As you can see, it is reading just fine without any setting change. All right, checking DC with the cheap cobalt. We're going to set to DC here. And I am going to put it on 20 volt DC just because it's lower voltage. Of course, no backlight on this cobalt. There it is, 13.7. Again, no symbol on the screen to tell you if it's DC or AC, but you should know by the settings that you have set to. All right, now time for our Klein here. We're going to set it to DC. So we set it to voltage, hit the select key, and now we're on DC. Let's see what we get. And there we go, 13.7. Let's turn the light on. All right, we got the light on, and you can see 13.7 reading just fine. And that's with those needle probes attached to the existing leads of the Klein. All right, and lastly will be the budget-friendly Harbor Freight Walmart meter. I'm gonna set that to DC voltage. There we go. And this is giving us 13 volts DC. You see it says DC, 13 volts. Very simple meter, and you can see DC and our voltage. So we're good here. This one does not have any type of backlighting. We're going to do basic power, that's AC voltage. First, let's start off with the fill piece. Now, this is a fill piece SC440. This is my favorite meter. This is what I use daily. What I like about this one is that it also gives you amperage and voltage at the same time. Not that it matters, but it's a cool little feature. The magnet on this, that's, as you can see, not the best thing in the world. All right, so let's start by just checking voltage. We're gonna go right here to voltage. That's red and white, and you can hear it, it's beeping, and there you have it, 123.6 volt. Again, that's alternating current, AC voltage. Let's pull another meter. So let's go ahead and use the Klein. All right, so now we got the Klein. This is the CL800. Of course, there's no magnet unless you get the attachment that will go here, and then you'll have a magnet. We're gonna switch it to voltage. This is gonna be AC voltage. You can see we have the squiggly line. That means we do have, turn the light on, AC voltage. Now, if we hit select, now you got the straight line with the dots. That means you are DC voltage. So back to AC, auto, not the safest or easiest way, but as we can see, our voltage is correct. All right, let's try the Tik Tok meter. We're just gonna turn it on. Of course, this is auto ranging and it's auto detection, so we're not gonna press any buttons or switch anything. We're gonna go straight to check voltage. As you can tell, it's reading. I didn't press any buttons. I pressed the button just to have the light on, but as you can see, we're good. Now what we're going to do is compare that to the Fluke 7300. Of course, this is a discontinued model, but this is also an automatic auto-selecting meter. We're just going to flip it on and let it do its thing. We'll cross our same points there. And 123. Again, this is auto ranging, works just as fine as the Tik Tok meter. This has been around. This meter alone has been around the corner. It's still working just fine with beat up leads and everything. It still works fine. Tik Tok meter lasts as long? Probably not. Probably not going to last as long as this Fluke gets lasted. All right, the last meter that we're going to test here is going to be the Harbor Freight / Walmart meter from Ken Tech. Let's put this on voltage and give it a try. All right, so there's amperage, and we're going to go over to voltage. So it starts with amperage and goes down to voltage there. So we're going to put it on voltage, AC voltage. It says AC on the screen right there. All right, let's give that a shot. $122, $123. It works. I mean, nothing fancy. This is what you're getting off of a $25 meter. All right, so when it comes to budget-friendly multimeters, only one can reign supreme. That is going to be the Harbor Freight / Walmart multimeter. So all these multimeters can be purchased for less than $25. I mean, from the Tik Tok meter, Cobalt, and even to the generic Amazon multimeter. And I mean, this one, geez, I mean, you can find this one all over Amazon. They have all, and all of them will have probably a different manufacturer name. This multimeter itself is very generic, and they just slap different brands on them, but it's still all going to be the same. But all these are less than $25. So why the Harbor Freight or Walmart multimeter? Well, there's only one reason. You can check an amp draw. A multimeter that can't check an amp draw on a load is going to be, to me, kind of useless, because that's a pretty important test that you should be making on some of your loads. That's pretty important. I need to be able to check my amp draw. This one was purchased from Harbor Freight. Since doing this, Harbor Freight has switched and they've upgraded this meter to a different style meter. It's a little bit more expensive, but Walmart picked up this design and it's selling them under their Hyper Tough, I think, brand. I'll show you here when I was at Walmart the other day. So as you can see, it's the same exact meter, and it's all by the same company. It's all Ken Tech who does this meter. So yeah, for less than $25, I think out of all the budget-friendly multimeters, to me, this has the more value just because it does have the clamp. So if you're in the market for a multimeter and you're on a budget, yeah, and you might not be able to afford the $130 Klein or $200 field piece or $300 fluke, but you might be able to swing $25 just to get you by. Or you're looking for a quick, easy backup multimeter just to have as a backup in case your main meter fails. I would rather have something like this with me than these other meters, just because in the pinch I can at least check my amp draw. So that's just my opinion, and you might feel different about that, but now you know. All right, so we tested them all so you didn't have to. And what did we find out? Well, the Tik Tok meter didn't work out too well. The leads themselves didn't even last us 3 checks before they started falling apart. So I couldn't recommend this multimeter to anyone. I mean, for your homeowner or DIYer, maybe. For anyone in field service, hell no. Hell no. That meter is just not going to be worth it. I get it. It's $14, but what's another $10 and you can go get something a little bit better, So that's my recommendation. And believe it or not, this is what people are saying about this meter.
I'll see something electricians don't want you to know. Check out this Tesman meter here. This thing is completely automatic. You don't need to know what setting.
Be careful, because that's hot. Okay, Professor, where do I position the dial? Make it a whole lot easier on yourself. You get one of these auto-ranging meters made by Tesman off Tik Tok shop.
This might not look like a multimeter because there's not some big confusing dial in the middle, but this is actually the most advanced multimeter I've ever used, and it's only $17 with free.
And the Klein CL800 was a phenomenal meter. It did everything we needed to do, so yes, that would be a good recommendation. I will still recommend anything within that pro range model. So that's going to be your flukes, your field pieces, and your Kleins. Any of those meters will be great for field service, and as you can tell, only the Klein out of the ones that we looked at had the low Z. Now, of course, the fluke does have low Z settings. Those are going to be $200 plus units. So that will be up to you. But for the entry point of $130, the Klein wins it by far. All right, so we hope you enjoyed today's video. There is going to be a part 2 where we go into batteries and the leads themselves and how to test the leads, maintaining your meter. And these will be more in-depth look into how to use each section on that meter. So look out for part 2. So thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.